So what you want to do is keep putting it back in the pasta machine until you have nice even sheets here. You can fold it over. Be very careful that you don't seal any air in. And just in case you have some air in there, you always want to put the fold in first, because that way it'll push any air out. So you want to do that a couple times. A lot of people like to just rip it in half, because then you don't have that bubble down at the bottom to worry about. You still want to make sure you're not trapping air in there. That's going to be the one disadvantage of conditioning this way, is you run the risk of just trapping air in between all those sheets. You're going to do that several times. Let me show you what to do if you do have a little bit of bubble in there. You don't want to keep it in there because it'll only get worse when you bake it. So you want to take a needle tool, and can you see my little bubble right there? You want to just kind of poke it from the side and release that air. Got another one there and another one there. And when you put that in, you put it in this way, and it'll kind of seal those up again, but force the air out. Other problems, if it's sticking to the roller, sometimes clay is pretty sticky when it comes out of the package. You might want to consider leaching your clay. And what leaching means is it's actually pulling some of the chemicals out of the clay. I have an example here. This is a very soft clay. It comes out of the package. It's real squishy. The plasticizer is what keeps it soft. That ingredient is keeping it soft. So if you roll out your clay and put it between sheets of paper and put a weight on it, then over the period of a few hours and overnight, you can actually see the oily residue where that's actually the plasticizer being pulled out of the clay. So now this piece of clay it's still flexible, it's still very soft, but it is much less gooey than this original. You can see this is just sticking to everything. I think you can probably see a little bit how flexible this one is. And this is just a little bit firmer. This is just from overnight leaching it out. You can just see that oily residue. So if your clay is very sticky, you might want to consider thinking ahead and leaching it for a couple of hours. So that's the basics of conditioning. You can do it by hand, you can do it by a pasta machine. If you would like to roll thin sheets, but you don't have a pasta machine, you can condition by hand. You kind of press it into a flattish shape, and you can concoct a little system like this. You can actually get thin dowels or thin boards, this is just balsa wood, in different thicknesses, and tape them down to a surface, and if you put your clay in here and roll right along those boards, your clay is going to be a nice even thickness, the same thickness as your balsa wood or whatever you use here. So if you can get this in several different thicknesses, it'll be like the pasta machine where we can actually make the rollers thinner just by turning this. Each sheet gets thinner and thinner as you do that. You can do the same thing here by having different sizes of wood on the sides to roll your roller on. See, it's very sticky today. Okay, I mentioned that a good way to know if your clay is conditioned is by mixing two separate colors, and when they are mixed into one color, then that is conditioned. So while we're talking about that, I thought I would actually show you a little experiment. If you're interested in mixing colors, how to kind of keep track of what you've done. I'm famous for grabbing a couple of different colors, mixing something up. It's a beautiful shade, and I have absolutely no idea how I did it. So if you can kind of keep track of the percentage of each color you use, then you might be able to recreate it again in later. So what I did is I chose white, green, and black. These columns are solid white, solid green, solid black. And then I did a combination of whites and blacks to get different tints and shades of the green. You can then bake these pieces and have a record of what happens when I use 3 parts green to 1 part white, what happens when I use 1 part green to 3 parts black. So it's a way to test your conditioning, and it's a way to, an exercise so that you can recreate different colors that you mix. You can see here, I cut out 16 green and then 10 each white and 10 black. The end columns are solid color. Next ones in are 3 of the base and 1 of the green, 2 and 2, 1 and 3. Same over here for the black. So if I were to just scoop up these pieces and mix them, I'd get this green. If I were to scoop up these greens and black, I'd get that shade of green. So it's a handy little method of mixing colors, testing if your clay is conditioned, and seeing all the fun possibilities of colors in polymer clay.